I've been a video editor for the last 7 years, and I've worked on many films throughout that time. Every filmmaker I've ever collaborated with, they've all had the same goal in mind, which is making a great film. The problem is there are some key mistakes that not only make the editing of the film a nightmare, but they also ruin the quality of the film. So in this video, I want to talk about what those lethal mistakes are and how you can avoid them in your next production. The first mistake is not getting enough coverage. Coverage is basically just a fancy term for the shots that you need to tell your story. You need to make sure that you film your scene from enough angles so that the editor has enough flexibility in the edit to tell a powerful story. What can make a story powerful is how it's cut together, how the editor picks the best performances from different takes and combines everything to tell your story in the most effective way possible. And if you don't capture enough camera angles, the editor just does not have the power to do that anymore. There are many different camera angles that you can choose from. I'm not gonna get bogged down with that in this video, but what I am gonna talk about is the 3 essential camera angles that you need to capture in order to give your editor enough flexibility to tell a compelling story. So those shots are wide shot, medium shot, and close-up. A wide shot is a shot where you see the subject fully in the frame. So if that's a character, it'll be from head to toe. And if it is used at the beginning of a scene, it is called an establishing shot because it establishes the setting of a scene. A medium shot is where you see half of the subject in the frame. So if it's a character, you're going to see them from the waist up. And it is often the most common shot that you will use in a scene. The next shot is a close-up shot. Now, a close-up is used to signify to the audience that what you're showing them is important. So it is most commonly used on a character's face or on an object. If a close-up shot is used on a character's face, it is used to heighten what they are saying and how they're feeling. If it is used on an object, you're telling the audience that this object is meaningful. So don't miss out on the storytelling power of the close-up. And because of this power, that is also why the medium shots are so important and so common, because you can cut away from the medium shot into a close-up, and then the close-up will have increased emotional power.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
The next biggest mistake is not filming reaction shots. Now, this is different from shot types that I just talked about. Reaction shots are shots of a character reacting to something. This is most commonly an issue in dialogue scenes. A common misunderstanding, especially with newer filmmakers, is they think that all they need to record is the characters saying their lines, because they think you're just gonna edit from one line to the next line. This person says this, you're on them, then the next person responds and you're on them. When you do that, you miss out on how the characters are listening to each other. That can be a big handicap in a story because there's so much storytelling value that you can get out of watching somebody listening to someone. For example, let's take a dialogue scene between character A and character B. Character A says, "Marty's coming tonight." Seeing how character B reacts to that can tell the audience how character B feels about Marty. They always say acting is reacting. Half of the performance is in the reactions. So if you don't get the reactions, you're missing out on half of the storytelling power. Make sure you film the actors throughout the entire scene, not just their dialogue, so that you get those clean reactions and the editor has a lot to choose from and they can make your story a lot more powerful. The next biggest mistake is probably the most damning, and that is bad audio. Bad audio is something you just cannot get away with. It is the #1 thing that will tank your film. And if you want to have great audio, your audio needs to be consistent. Every scene and every shot needs to have the same crystal clear audio quality. As an editor, I've experienced inconsistent audio very often. For example, within a scene, the close-up may sound good, but then the wide shot and the medium shot don't sound good. This happens most often when a production either didn't hire a professional sound recordist, or even if they did, the recordist didn't have all the equipment necessary. So here are the 2 essential pieces of equipment that you need in order to get good, consistent audio. The first is a boom microphone, and the next are lavalier microphones. These are microphones that you hook up to each actor in a scene. And here's how I use both as an editor. Lavalier microphones, since they are attached to the actors, I use those for the dialogue of the movie. So any line of dialogue that's recorded, if it's recorded cleanly from a lavalier microphone, I'm gonna use that piece of dialogue because it will be the best quality. Boom microphone is more of a backup microphone. It's just something that's good to have that you record in case there's an issue with the lavalier microphones. A downfall with lavalier microphones is that since they are often hidden behind clothing, you can sometimes hear some interference between the clothes and the mic. It'll sound something like this. It's just some ruffling that if somebody's speaking and you can hear the ruffling, that can be distracting. So in that case, I'll try to cut to the boom microphone. But if there's no issue with the lavalier, I'm just gonna stick to that. Aside from the equipment, there are also 3 best practices to ensure you get great audio. The first is make sure you record room tone. Room tone is the sound of the silence in a room. Rooms are never actually completely silent. Every room has its own unique texture. And you need to make sure that every time you go to a new location, you record at least 30 seconds of silence in that location. And you will want to record it with your boom microphone. The editor will take this room tone and apply it throughout the entire scene so that all of the audio blends in seamlessly. The second best practice is make sure you record wild lines. Wild lines are clean audio recordings of each line of dialogue. So once you're done recording a scene, make sure nobody else is talking and have the actors repeat each line of dialogue with the same acting energy directly into the boom microphone. So if there is any issue with the audio quality throughout the scene, having those wild lines is a great backup that can help you get great audio. And the final best practice is even if you have no dialogue in a scene, still record the audio. It has happened many times where a filmmaker has been like, well, there's no dialogue in this scene, so we're just not gonna record the audio. But you should record it because even if there's no dialogue, there are still sounds happening in the scene. You hear the room, you hear the character's footsteps, you hear their clothing, you hear them touching objects, whatever it is. You wanna make sure you record all of those sounds on the set so that you don't have to re-record all of those sounds later. The next fatal mistake is inconsistent lighting. Inconsistent lighting is when the lighting does not match within a scene. When you're shooting a film, you're often shooting for long days and out of order, so it's not uncommon that the lighting doesn't quite match in each shot. For small, slight inconsistencies, this usually isn't a big issue and a good colorist can address that. But where this becomes a real issue for both the editing and the overall quality of your film is if the lighting drastically changes within a scene. For example, I was once editing a film where there was a scene that took place outside. And when they filmed it, they filmed one character's coverage in the morning and then they filmed the others in the afternoon. The problem was that since they were shooting outside, the daylight changed from the morning to the afternoon. So on one side, the lighting looks one way, and then when you cut to the other person, the lighting looked completely different. The sky was very different. This becomes a big issue because it is very jarring to an audience. They will immediately notice the difference in the sky. So what I was forced to do is just pick the wide shot where you saw the 2 characters, and I stayed on that shot for the scene. Thankfully, it wasn't a very long scene, so you can kind of get away with that, but that just shows you how problems like that can handicap the editing. And if you handicap the editing, you're handicapping your story. This, again, usually will not be a problem if you're hiring a professional cinematographer, especially if you're recording a scene indoors, because cinematographers are really skilled at controlling the light and making sure that everything matches. It usually becomes a problem if you are filming something outside, and even a good cinematographer may not be able to overpower the sun, right? The best way to kind of avoid the problem and not have to reshoot on another day is just make sure you film quickly. Don't spend too much time when you're filming outside. You're dealing with the real elements. Get in and get out as fast as you can. So there you have it. Those are, in my experience at least, the biggest issues that I've come across that will make the editing a lot more difficult, and they will affect the quality of your film. If you found anything particularly helpful in this video, please be sure to drop a comment down below. Or if anything was unclear, please ask me. I'll get right back to you. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.